They want to be sure that anyone that speaks up against the ruling class disappears. They want Donald Trump to disappear. They want to send him to jail. They want to take him off the main stage because they know here's their biggest danger.
Would a member of the ruling class be facing 730 years in prison? What a pathetic question. 730 years in prison, and he's a member of the elite? That's pathetic. You're not a journalist.
Donald Trump arrived in court today. This is after yesterday's disaster. Not only did Michael Cohen, of course, get caught in a lie, a couple of lies, but he also admitted on the stand that he was a thief and he embezzled from Donald Trump. But for some reason, the prosecution kept plugging along, saying, oh, yeah, we're fine with this. Everything's going to be good. It's almost like it's baked in the cake. It's almost like the fix is in. As usual, Donald Trump showed up in court. But today, the most noteworthy part of his appearance was who was with him, who was standing with President Trump. Take a look at this murderer's row. If you look there, you'll be able to recognize, of course, the president's son, Donald Trump Jr. You're also going to see Matt Whitaker, who is a former U.S. attorney and was deputy attorney general right before Bill Barr was named. You're going to see former Attorney General of Florida Pam Bondi, Lieutenant Governor of Texas Dan Patrick, Senator Eric Schmidt, Representative Daniel Webster, Representative Dan Muser, Representative Ronnie Jackson, who was the president's physician, you'll remember, and then ran for Congress in Texas, Representative Troy Nehls, Representative Dale Strong, Representative Maria Salazar, also Sebastian Gorka, you see there on the right, looking fierce and ready for action. We got some video of him in a second. He, of course, part of our Salem News family. Also, Chuck Zito, former Hell's Angels member. Joe Piscopo, also a radio talk show host with Salem in New York. Bill White, columnist. Also, I'm told, and I can't see him in the picture here, but Alan Dershowitz, former Harvard law professor and now commentator, was in the crowd too. That's an amazing image. And thank you, by the way, to our buddy Benny Johnson, who found that picture and put it out there through Getty Images, as you can see, the photographer, Michael Santiago. So as usual, the entourage followed President Trump into the courtroom, watched until the first recess, and then emerged. And take a look at the fiery scene outside the courtroom.
What is Judge Merchan hiding? Here is a 28-page document from the Southern District of New York about what? Michael Cohen and why he is a criminal. This document was meant to be brought up in court. Judge Merchan suppressed it. This is from the Southern District. 28 pages. Michael Cohen being a perjurer and a criminal. What are you hiding, Judge Merchan? Is it perhaps the fact that your daughter has just made $93 million for the Democrat Party? President Trump is being gagged. He's the leader of the opposition. He is the only person who can replace the incumbent senile old man. And we know that this judge is working on behalf of the Democrats. Why are you hiding this document, Judge Merchan? I'm going to put it on the internet today. What are you hiding, Judge Merchan?
They want to be sure that anyone that speaks up against the ruling class disappears. They want Donald Trump to disappear. They want to send him to jail. They want to take him off the main stage because they know here's their biggest danger to taking the ruling class down. No, you know what? Donald Trump is not the ruling class. Donald Trump is for every New Yorker. He's for every Texan, every state. Donald Trump has put his whole life on the line, for the American people. When he came down that escalator, he probably had no idea that he was going to be called to be the man in the gap to stand up for Americans. And he's standing up for you, even if you don't know it. I don't know who's next.
Would a member of the ruling class be facing 730 years in prison? What a pathetic question. 730 years in prison, and he's a member of the elite? That's pathetic. You're not a journalist.
You gotta love Seb right at the end there. Dr. Sebastian Gorka, national radio host and also a member of our Salem family. That was Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick from Texas there making that point. And I'd love to get the name of that reporter. Gorka will probably be revealing it later today on his nationally syndicated radio show, if he can make it back to a microphone after being there on the streets of New York. But whoever it was said, Trump's the ruling class. He used to be president. Isn't Trump the ruling class? And let's watch one more time how Seb handles this journalist. It's so beautiful.
Would a member of the ruling class be facing 730 years in prison? What a pathetic question. 730 years in prison, and he's a member of the elite? That's pathetic. You're not a journalist.
You're not a journalist. They're not journalists. We've told you that. They're advocates. They're actually sort of working for the other guys. They're not in any way trying to just find objective truth and inform their people. That's why he's debating right there on the city's sidewalk. If their job was to report information and gather news and disseminate it to their readers or their viewers or their listeners, then they would take the information and then go back to their viewers and say, well, this is what Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said, and then play it. But instead, he's debating with them. He's shouting back at them. He's got a little pink hat on. All right. Also, this is pretty rich. This was played inside the courtroom. You know, Michael Cohen, despite the fact that he literally physically looks like a rat, if you've looked at him, he just, it's unfortunate. I don't like to make fun of people's appearances, mostly. But he does. Michael Cohen looks like a rat, which is appropriate because he acts like a rat. Well, he's trying to be this mild-mannered, put-upon guy. Oh, I was so beaten down by Trump world. I was trying to please my little daddy figure. I'm just an innocent victim in all of this. I got caught up in the web of lies of fascist little orange Hitler, and I'm, innocent and fine. Well, that's the Cohen that is trying to present himself to the jury. But as you can see from this CNN panel describing it, there was a different Michael Cohen that was played for the jury, and even CNN has to recognize how bad this guy is. Watch.
But it was played, a moment of it was played in the courtroom today, and it was so fascinating because, Michael Cohen's testimony has been very even-keeled,
even demeanor,
very rational, very yes, ma'am, no, sir, all this. And suddenly they played this thing, and there's a guy screaming in the room, like, using expletives.
No, it's just normal Michael.
No, it's just
regular.
But first of all, there's also a rap. As somebody who does a podcast, I was like, is this his actual normal speaking voice in a podcast? Because it's literally yelling, and it's clearly written down because he's speaking in a way that's not. So he's written down these yells, like it's got to be all in caps. I mean, it was shocking. I was like,
between that, just the volume of him and compared with his very calm demeanor, that was, I also was like, whoa.
I mean, it filled the courtroom. I don't know if somebody turned up the volume too loud. I was like, is this intentionally too loud? Oh, wait, I'm told we have a clip of the podcast. Let's play it and play it loud because it was quite loud in the courtroom, I got to tell you. Let's hear it.
Volume.
I truly hope that this man ends up in prison. It won't bring back the year that I lost or the damage done to my family, but revenge is a dish best served cold. And you better believe I want this man to go down and rot inside for what he did to me and my family.
So yeah, that's what was played in court.
I think he's a little biased. I don't know.
Well, and that's the key here, is that this is the Michael Cohen that now was presented to the jury so that they can see who he really was. And gee, maybe if that's truly how he feels about Donald Trump, maybe he will say and do anything on the witness stand, even lie, if it means enacting revenge against Donald Trump and getting him put behind bars. By the way, it should be lost on no one that the name of his podcast is Mea Culpa, which of course in Latin means I am guilty. So that's the star witness for the prosecution, Michael Cohen. Honestly, guys, not going well at all. Let's go back to earlier today, though. Before Gorka came out there and started smacking down reporters, before the testimony began today in the trial, as per usual, Donald Trump did meet the media, and he had a little bit to say.
Well, thank you very much. Just to begin, so the news on inflation it really is rampant. It's moving at a level like people have not seen. They don't seem to be able to cut it down. Biden has no control over what's happening. He started it with energy, and now it's taking on a life of its own. It's very sad. We'll get it fixed. I'd like to be out campaigning right now, but again, I'm going to be in here almost 5 weeks in court. They have no case. There's no crime. Every single legal expert, and I can say this again and again, and every time they come out, maybe at some point they'll come out and say, oh, we found something. But every single legal expert, Andy McCarthy, Jonathan Turley, Mark Levin, every one of them, Greg Jarrett. These are great talents. These are actually very brilliant guys, and they're not necessarily on my side historically over the years. But they're very talented people. They're legal scholars, highly respected. Every single person is saying there's no crime. There's no crime. It's a kangaroo court. There's never been anything like this that I've ever seen. Now, I had 2 other trials that were kangaroo courts also. It's stacked up. And hopefully appellate division will take care of those things because they're egregious. And the problem is that New York is really on trial itself. The whole world is watching. They're seeing what's happening. And you can't use conflicted judges. This is a conflicted judge, highly conflicted judge. And you just can't do that. You just cannot allow that to happen because you ruin the whole system. The whole system comes tumbling down. And New York, look, I love New York. This is where I grew up. I was born here. I grew up here. And I see what's happening with this judicial system. And it's just, they call it all kangaroos. And we just can't have it. And I think the appellate courts can take care of a lot of things. But this one shouldn't even get to an appellate court. This should be an easy ruling. And it should really be, and I think it would be great for Judge Marchand to rule from the bench and to terminate this witch hunt. And it needs it. It really needs, it needs decisiveness. Every single scholar says there's been no crime, he's done nothing wrong. And I'm fighting for 300 million people. I mean, I have no choice. It's not that I like doing this, sitting in an icebox all day for 7, 8, 9 hours. And it's a very cold room, I will tell you that. But I'm doing this because our country needs it. Our Constitution's under threat. Our country needs it. So here I am. I will be doing something in the morning and then probably coming back in the afternoon. And we'll be resting pretty quickly. Resting meaning resting the case. I won't be resting. I don't rest. I like to rest sometimes, but I don't get to rest. But we have a phenomenal case. We've won the case by any standard. Any other judge who would have thrown this case out. Any other judge would have thrown this case out. And I think that Juan Marchand would do himself and do the state and the city a great service by doing what everybody knows should be done. And so we're going to go in. We'll have another little scrum in a little while, perhaps. It should end a little bit early today. We appreciate you suffering with us. Look, you've been with us for 5 weeks. And you see it. The crowds outside, we can't get, it's not a very big thing for us. We don't really care that much. But people want to get out there, and you have all police. The only people that are let out there is the radical left lunatics. And they put our people 4 or 5 blocks away. There are a lot of them, too. But I say that doesn't matter. What matters is what's going on in this courthouse. So thank you very much. We'll be back a little bit later. Thank you.
Good statement there. And again, Donald Trump, this time not reading from, he mentioned Greg Jarrett and a couple of other commentators, but he didn't read some news items from various people because he knew he had his posse behind him, literally backing him up there. And they would go out there. And I just want to remind everybody, especially if you have left-wing liberal friends who were like, yeah, of course Trump's guilty. And don't say this isn't fair. This is completely fair. Every single thing that you just saw, from Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick to Sebastian Gorka to whatever, anybody else there literally backing him up and having his back behind him, whatever they said to the media today, if Donald Trump had gone out there and expressed his opinion in the exact same way, used his First Amendment rights to express himself and to defend himself and plead his innocence and to point out the unfair, unconstitutional, and corrupt way this process is being carried out, then Donald Trump would be put in jail. And I defy anybody to explain that to me. If this man says it, it's completely fine. It's constitutionally protected speech. But if this man, the man who actually stands accused and is facing off against the full force of the government and the legal system, who can strip away his money and his freedom and put him in jail, if he says the exact same thing in his defense, he gets put in jail automatically for violating an unconstitutional gag order. No one can explain that to me. within the confines of the First Amendment and the Constitution, because it's completely wrong. It's fraudulent. If this person can say it, then this person should be able to say it. Period. End of discussion.